Season 1 of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man has wrapped up, so has this show lived up to its potential?
This video contains spoilers.
So if you don't know, this series was originally going to be called Spider-Man Freshman Year, and it was going to be an origin story for the Tom Holland version of Spider-Man in the MCU, but a lot of stuff kind of changed, and so it turned into its own separate universe. And so is this show very good quality for what it is? So as I said, it's set in an alternate universe, and I think it does a good job of feeling like something a little bit fresh for Spider-Man, because there's been quite a few Spider-Man animated series over the years, and what this show does with the story and its usage of the characters is overall just done in a way that it's something new enough. Most of the plot lines for this season are pretty straightforward. You have some stuff going on with different groups of people, but it all kind of ties together pretty nicely. When it comes to the characters in this show, there were a few of them that I actually hadn't heard of, and so I researched them because I figured they were new. But it turns out pretty much all the main characters in this series are from the comics, they just may be lesser known. Obviously, you have Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, put front and center in the series. In the first episode at the very beginning, it's where he gets bit, and then it immediately cuts a few months later when he already has his powers and he's getting used to them. And I will say, since this took place in an alternate universe, I was kind of hoping that maybe he would have a villain arc or something like that. There were a lot of theories going around that might be the case, but when it comes to his personality, it's pretty much just in line with all the previous forms of media. And admittedly, since they were doing this completely alternate universe, I was hoping they would switch things up with his character at least a little bit. But of course, you have Norman Osborn kind of being his mentor instead of Tony Stark in this universe, and he works pretty well. You can definitely tell throughout the series that he's not a very transparent character. I'm not too sure if he's already kind of turned into the Green Goblin yet. From the looks of it, I wouldn't say so, but he's definitely going to start that process soon, and we already know he has that glider. Now, some people were complaining that they kind of changed the way he looks in this show, and I will say I definitely prefer comic accuracy most of the time, but in this case it doesn't really bother me because it is this alternate universe. So stuff like that you can change up, and that might be my biggest problem with this show. They didn't change enough stuff up. Of course, you also have Harry Osborn in this show, where they actually did change him up quite a bit, where he's like this social media influencer, and he doesn't meet Peter until the time period when this show is set. But in that case, I feel like the changes they made to his character didn't really make the story any better, and I feel like they put too much focus on him and the Nico character when they could have just had Ned in the show.
Can I try the suit on? No. How does it work? Is it magnets?
And that's kind of my main problem with this show. Most of the characters are kind of hit or miss. Some of them are pretty interesting, and then some of them are pretty forgettable. Now, when it comes to the villains, though, of course you have Scorpion playing a huge role into the story, and you have Otto Octavius as well, who might actually be my favorite villain from the series. He definitely stole the show in every scene he was in, and you can definitely tell this show is setting up a ton of stuff with different types of characters, like the ones that were teased at the very last episode, and just in general with the character of Lonnie, who starts off as a pretty good side character, and then he gets involved in this gang, and it's definitely confirmed he's turning into Tombstone. I also must say Big Don was probably my favorite character of this show. I can't believe we didn't get to see more of him. But regardless, what this show does pretty well is there's all these different groups of people, but they all kind of have connections to each other, where obviously Norman Osborn has a history with Otto Octavius, and of course Otto Octavius is the one giving these different villains these high-tech weapons, and of course there's already an established conflict with Scorpion and his gang and the 110th Street gang. So all of that stuff ties together very nicely, and some of the stuff in this universe is very similar to the MCU, where some of the events of Civil War are kind of taking place during this time. And of course you have Thaddeus Ross in a few scenes, you even have one cameo with Iron Man, and you even have Daredevil a little bit in this show, another character that I think is just absolutely great, and I just can't believe they didn't give him more screen time. It's great that Charlie Cox actually voiced him, but just overall when it comes to the voice acting, it's pretty good for all these characters. The action might actually be the biggest strength of this show. A lot of the fight scenes are just done very well, and since it's animated, there's a lot more stuff you can do with that, making it feel more comic booky. There's just a lot of excitement that goes on. When it comes to the animation style they use for this series, it's been kind of controversial. A lot of people have really liked it because they say it feels like a comic book, but I mean, at the same time, so does the Spider-Verse films, and that's just way better. And then of course a lot of people just do not like the animation style here at all. And in my opinion, as I just said, the fight scenes are done really well, and I think this type of animation works very well in terms of those fight scenes. However, when it's just scenes of people like standing around and talking to each other, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I just find it a little bit off-putting. And not all of the character designs are that great either. But to its credit, it's something pretty unique. Now typically when it comes to TV series or streaming series, they usually don't have like movie level quality of music. And so this is one of those series where I can't really remember what any of the background music sounds like, except for the intro theme song, which is a remix of that classic Spider-Man song, and that's pretty cool. But it's not like this is a movie level thing where it has a super memorable score. Now there's a few funny bits here and there, but not really anything too crazy where it's like laugh out loud. And it just doesn't do anything that significant when it comes to the comedy. Not that it really needs to though. Although there are some Spider-Man projects like the Homecoming movie where they actually had a ton of humor and that worked pretty well. So just overall when it comes to this show, I thought a lot of it was done really well. As I said, I do think they could have done a little bit more with this being a whole alternate universe, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. It gets much better as it goes along. I do think it started off a little bit underwhelming, but as you get introduced to all these different characters and there's all these different references to different comics and that kind of stuff, the show does get better.
I mean, it's alright, like...
I will admit, I don't necessarily love this series like a lot of other people do, but I did think it was enjoyable enough, and apparently they've already renewed this show for season 3, so that means there's at least going to be another 2 seasons, and hopefully those seasons will be pretty good. But at the end of the day, when it comes to this season, I thought the story was pretty nice. It was cool how it went full circle in the last episode with Doctor Strange and the Venom symbiote thing, and I'm thinking maybe in a future season we'll get to see this Spider-Man become a bully like Bully Maguire, and who knows, maybe this version of Spider-Man will appear in Beyond the Spider-Verse. But on the quality scale of 0 to 100, I'll give this season a 70%, and if you're a fan of Spider-Man, I would recommend it. But if you have seen it, let me know what you think about it in the comments section down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.